Welcome to my show, simply entitled Women Influencers, where you will find inspirational stories of successful women in business. I am Veronica Malolas, CCIM, founder and CEO of the Capstrata Group of Companies, providing commercial real estate development, brokerage, and property management services in the greater Orlando area. Today's guest is Charlotte Ustler. Hear about how her journey, shaped by urban planner and grant writing parents, comes full circle as a principal of the highly impactful Ustler Development Company in Orlando. Please don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe below. I welcome your comments and please share with someone who can benefit from this podcast. Hi, Charlotte. How are you today? Thank you so much for being here with me.
Hi, I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and I'm just going to jump right in. Charlotte, tell us how you grew up in your environment and how you got to where you are today.
So I like to say that community is in my DNA. I grew up ultimately surrounded by city building. My dad was an urban planner here in Central Florida, and he worked on major projects and doing regional planning and specialized in DRIs really throughout Florida. And then my mom was the executive director of grants for the Dr. Phillips Foundation, who I'm sure you are familiar with, and they fund transformative community projects and other nonprofit initiatives here in Central Florida. So, growing up at the kitchen table at night, it was just, we were always talking about thoughtful development and the lasting impact and the role that all of us have and that responsibility that we have as members of the community. So it's just sort of natural, I guess. It's just always sort of been part of me and my life. And so, I guess taking that into consideration and Dr. Phillips does do a lot of real estate. As you are aware, like they've got the Packing District, which is a super cool project that they're working on. And so I always kind of said that I wanted to either do journalism or I wanted to be in real estate. And I dabbled in a little bit of broadcasting just to kind of see what that would be like. And I realized that I really wasn't cut out for it. It wasn't for me. I didn't really like where that was starting to shift. So I got my real estate license right out of high school. And I joined Matt Falconer with Falcon Development. And he built shadow shopping centers next to super Walmarts and Targets throughout Florida. We were a really small, lean team. So even though I was hired to do the leasing of the shopping centers and some property management, I really got exposure to it all. You sort of had to jump in and just solve problems. And it was with that I fell in love with the industry and commercial real estate and the unpredictability. Yeah. Commercial real estate and the problem solving. And so I was with Matt for about 3.5 years. And when I was 22, Kimco Realty actually took a chance on me. I was recruited by Jennifer Millman for a real estate director position for Kimco. And I remember when she actually called me about it. I saw the job posting and it listed all of this criteria. And I was like, Jennifer, I don't have any of, I don't have half of this. She was like, you need to just send in your deal sheet. Just trust me. So I did. I was super nervous, went through a few interviews, and I ended up getting hired. And I spent just shy of 14 years with Kimco, managing shopping centers, the leasing of shopping centers across a multi-million square foot portfolio in Florida and the Southeast. So
now, just for context, Kimco is not just in Florida, correct?
Correct.
Or are they? Yeah, because they're a national sort of developer, real estate company.
Yes, they are a national real estate firm. They're publicly traded. They're actually the largest owner of neighborhood shopping centers in the United States. So That's amazing. Through my exposure with Kimco that I really got to see how neighborhood centers function as economic engines and community anchors.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was cool. I learned a lot. a lot. It was great. But then in 2022, I made the leap to join my husband, Craig Ustler, at the company he founded, Ustler Development. And at Ustler, we specialize in urban infill and transformative redevelopment. We really focus on the downtown urban core. For here in Central Florida, we like to say we go hospital to hospital. And one of our major projects right now enrolls, we are the master developer of Creative Village, which is a public-private partnership with the city of Orlando.
Yeah, and it's pretty fantastic how you actually described how you were shaped by your childhood being around urban development and because of your dad and also grant writing from your mom
Yeah.
and how that just was just a natural fit for you. But I want to ask you, Charlotte, about a piece of your history that I'm so very curious about what and really just it's so interesting that you started bodybuilding actually at some point in your young life, right?
I did. So I was probably about 20, I think, when I got a wild hair. I was working out with a trainer because I just wanted to get in better shape. And he was actually a former bodybuilder and gladiator, and he had been on several covers of Muscle and Fitness magazine, and he had all of his magazine covers throughout his gym. So I would see him all the time when I was in there working out. And so I started asking him about it. And the competitive side in me was just like, well, if he can do it and other people can do it, why can't I try to do it? So I set off on that journey, and it was fun. It was hard work, right? Because there's a lot of people think it's just strictly physical, and it's not. I mean, 80% of it really is diet. And so at that time, my portfolio with Kimco was not just in Florida. I had properties in Charleston, South Carolina, and Savannah, Georgia. So I was traveling almost every week. And so it was trying to juggle and do that food management while getting in my workouts,
Wow.
while performing at Kimco, and making sure that I was staying on top of all my responsibilities there. But then also, sticking to this journey, this personal journey that I had kind of set out to do. And I think too, one of the motivators to me was my trainer, Roger, always said to me, he was like, this will help you in work too, Charlotte, because when people see that you take care of yourself, then they'll start to take you more seriously too, because it'll also show that you can commit to something and that you can follow through. And it shows a type of strength that you don't tend to see, and a type of commitment that a lot of people tend to lack. So
Wow, I love that. And I know that was for a short time, right? About 2 years that you were doing bodybuilding. Did you ever
yeah, it was
compete?
Yeah, it was for about 2 years. It got to the point. My last competition was actually the Arnold Classic, which is a pretty big deal. And that's actually one where you can get your pro card. But it got to the point where I had to sort of make a decision. If I wanted to go the pro card route, I was going to, it absolutely would have impacted my performance at Kimco and what I was doing there. And at the end of the day, I just love real estate and community building. That, as fun as the bodybuilding thing was, it didn't rank high enough.
Uh-huh. And listen, when I met you a few years back, we were talking about bodybuilding, and you even said, older women actually have good results as if they do it. So one of these days, Charlotte, I'm going to do it. But I wanted to ask you about challenges. If there was one challenge that came to mind that you've overcome, what would that be?
One thing I had to deal with a lot early on in my career, and I think some of this was because I started so young, right? I mentioned I started right out of high school. And even when I started at Kimco, I was 22. And so all of my peers were 20 plus years older than me. And so a lot of times when I would be sitting at the table with other deal makers, I was just dismissed. To my face, I had been told, oh, you're just a pretty face, or, oh, you were just hired because you're just a young, pretty thing. And so I was sort of just written off, asked to go make a copy or whatnot, and just not taken seriously. And this wasn't a male or female thing or anything like that. And I really do think it was the combination, right, of the being so young, probably not having necessarily the resume that other people had, but yet holding the same position as others. And so the way I dealt with it, though, is I just sort of looked at it. It bothered me, right? I definitely went home crying and plenty of times, but
I can
it
just imagine.
finally, right? But it finally hit me. And I was like, you know what, Charlotte? These people are underestimating you, because at the end of the day, you're performing. You're hitting your numbers. You're exceeding what's expected of you. And so if somebody, regardless of what the reason is, right? But if somebody wants to just write you off because, oh, you're young, you must not know what you're talking about, but you're confident in yourself and you know that you know what you're talking about and what you're doing, it's leverage. It's definitely leverage at the negotiation table, because when people think that they're smarter than you and really you're probably equals, I absolutely think at times that helped me get deals over the finish line, because I was able to play that chess game a little bit better, because I didn't go in with sort of that belief that this person across from me was less than.
Yeah, and I'm sure that it boded well that there was an element of surprise. I mean, sure, they judged you in the beginning, saying she's just a pretty face. Oh, I got this in the bag, and there you are, a heavy negotiator. I'm sure, if I could be a fly on that wall, that would have been so interesting to see. That's wonderful. I wanted to ask you about influence, and I know that you, being a part of Ustler Development, has a lot of probably positive outcomes that you had an impact on. So tell us a little bit about that.
So, one of the outcomes that I'm most proud of is the work that we are doing at Creative Village. It is a successful public private partnership that we have with the city of Orlando. And it's where we're spearheading the redevelopment of 68 acres in downtown Orlando on the west side in the Parramore neighborhood. And the site is actually home to what used to be our old Amway Arena before they built what is now the Kia Center. So it was really the old Amway Arena and a sea of parking lots. And so we've completed phase one, and it's an intentional hub for education and innovation and inclusive growth. It's anchored by UCF Downtown and Valencia College. And it's home to like UCF Bio, which a lot of people don't know that we have here in Orlando, one of the top ranked video game design programs in the world, which is amazing. Because of that, EA, Electronic Arts, who does the video games like NFL Madden and college football, so they're actually made right here in Orlando at Creative Village. So they decided to relocate their headquarters to Creative Village so they could be across from one of the top ranked video game programs. It also includes mixed income housing and market rate apartments, student housing options. We have some wonderful restaurants like the Monroe, which is owned by the Good Salt Restaurant Group. And I have to give Sue and Jason Chin a little shout out because they were James Beard finalists for Best Restaurant Tour and this year. And just to be nominated by the James Beard Foundation is a wonderful thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so a little shout out to them. They're our hometown culinary heroes. But really what makes Creative Village especially meaningful is the work that we're doing just in the Parramore community. I mentioned like we've partnered on some affordable housing. There's workforce opportunities. And our project partners like UCF Via and Valencia College and EA really do a great job of getting out there and going into the surrounding neighborhood and working with like the K through 8 school that's there on community program. It's Ben Knoll at UCF Via tells a really cool story of when he first started going to the K-8 school there, he would say like, oh, do you know the game NFL Madden? And the kids would say, yes. And he would say, well, do you know where it's made? And they'd say, no, and then he'd point and he'd say, it's made right across the street. And so that's cool because it's really started to open the eyes and doors for these students to realize the opportunities that are out there. And when kids can start to see stuff like this in their own neighborhood, they start to realize that, wow, I can do that one day. It starts to become more real and more palatable to them. And we've seen firsthand having Valencia College there. It's been a great, great on-ramp for high schoolers graduating out of the Parramore community at Jones High School and then starting their college career. And a lot of these kids are first-time college students going to Valencia College, and then they can go on to UCF or other universities. And then another like cool program that they do that's happening, I guess I should say, at Creative Village is Valencia Culinary has world-renowned culinary facilities. It's about 55,000 square feet of culinary kitchens at Creative Village. And so they have partnered with Get Cooking, which is a nonprofit and run by Chef Norman Van Aken and Stacy Archer. And so what they do is they bring in award-winning chefs each month who take on the challenge of teaching a recipe designed to feed a family of four, for $20. And so they work with Florida farmers like Four Roots, and they assemble meal kits for these low-income families who are part of the program, and the meal kits get delivered that day to these homes. And then that evening, they all log into a Zoom and they get to virtually, as a family, cook with these chefs. So they're learning new recipes. They're a lot of times learning about new foods. They're trying new foods. And it's been great. I've been there for a few of the filmings, and they always try to bring in a family to actually witness it live and interact with the chef. And it's just been really neat to see these young kids interact with these local chefs and talk about how it's their favorite time where the family comes together and they look forward to it and they get to try new recipes and try new things. And so it's cool to not only help put affordable food on the tables for these families, but also teach them how they can then continue it on, right? And then give them the opportunity to spend time together as a family building that bond. And because we all know, right, at the end of the day, like you're shaped at home.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Listening to you and your passion talking about the impact that you guys have made through Creative Village, really just I can't help but think about how it's come full circle because your conversations with your parents, as you described it growing up, having meaningful design and meaningful development actually does impact communities just like that. And I absolutely love that, Charlotte. So, if there was one piece of advice that you could give to our audience today, what would that be?
I would say don't be afraid to do the work. You may not always be the smartest person in the room. Odds are you won't. But don't ever let somebody outwork you. That's the one thing that you can control, right? There are always, especially in our business, there will always be all of these other outside factors and influences and things that you can't control about a deal or about a project. But you can control your effort and you can control the amount of work that you put in. And people notice that.
Yeah, great words of wisdom. I almost kind of tie it to the bodybuilding thing, because that's a lot of work, and you can't put yourself in a situation where you're allowing other people to kind of outwork you, and that's a lot of the competitive, edge too, right,
Mhm.
Charlotte? Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely love that. I think we've come to the part of our interview where you get to ask me a question. So
Ooh,
go ahead.
this is the good part now.
Yeah.
Okay. As someone who's built this platform in CRE, what's one habit or mindset among your guests that you've seen drive success?
Thank you for the question. That's a really awesome question because at this point, I think I'm already at the 90th mark. I've interviewed 90 wonderful women, and I'll tell you that the first thing that mostly just kind of like the thread that I've heard from my guests have been number one, resilience, number two, never giving up and having that positive mindset, and also boldness. I mean, you yourself have talked about all three of those, right? Resilience. I mean, you just can't let anything get you down, right? You just
Right.
got to keep going, pushing through, because guess what? Challenges are always going to be there because that's life. That's
Yeah.
just exactly how it is. And of course, having the right mindset, being always positive, and turning challenges around to where it becomes positive for you and something that would push you forward, just like what you talked about today. I think that's very common in a lot of successful women. And boldness. I love that you said, if he can do it, I can do it too. And as a matter of fact, that's something that I always say. When I look around and I think, I want to be this or I want to be that, I always think, I look to someone and I say, guess what? If they did it, I could do it too. And, I also love what you said about not being afraid of doing the work, because that is a common thread among all of my guests as well. I want to thank you, Charlotte, for being here today. I almost feel so very full in my heart, hearing you speak about kind of this meaningful journey that you've gone through, and your meaningful intent, right, with everything that you do. I think that's just so very inspirational. So, Charlotte, if the audience wanted to connect with you at all, your LinkedIn, tell us a little bit about how the audience might be able to connect with you.
Sure. So you are always willing to email me. And my email is charlotte@ustler.net. Pretty easy to remember. Feel free to follow me. I'm on Instagram at CityLoveCam. And I am also on LinkedIn. So you'll find me there just under Charlotte Ustler. And I would love to connect with anybody.
Thank you. I think this was just one of the most wonderful, very deep, sort of, introspective interviews I've had in a long time. So I appreciate the time that you've spent with us today. So, you have any parting words for us, Charlotte?
No, I'm just keep at it, right? Keep doing you, keep working hard and shooting towards your goals.
Thank you again,
Thank you.
and I'm sure we'll see each other soon.
Yes, thank you.
Take care.